Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to install EVGA GTX hybrid water cooler on your graphics card. The benefits of doing this, you will see your thermals go from 82 Celsius down to mid 40s, and it's going to be a quiet machine afterwards. First, you want to make sure is that your graphics card is using a stock PCB, which most reference or founder edition cards are using stock, but not always. You want to do some research on that. Most GTX 1080, 1070s, Titan cards going all the way back to GTX 680 are using stock PCB. But again, do some research on that part. And some of the tools you're going to need. You're going to need a 4mm drive socket, or you're going to need a 2 and 4mm Allen wrench. You're going to need size 1 Phillips, and you're going to need a 000 GIS screwdriver. Difference between Phillips and a GIS. GIS has a smaller head, so it's able to get into those really small, fine screws, which you're going to use right here on this back plate. It has 14 of them. Once you remove that back plate, you're pretty much going to be done with that GIS screw, the 000 GIS, unless you want to put the back plate back on, which I did in my case, but you don't really have to put it back on if you don't want to. You're going to use a size 1 or size 0 Phillips screwdriver to remove the IO plate. Here's some of the screws that I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using a battery operated little screwdriver, and then just a regular screwdriver. On the right side you see a smiley face. I made that to hold my screws. These are the screw sets I bought. They're very inexpensive. You can get them for about $6 or $7. I'm going to remove those are 2 and 4mm Allen wrench screws. My set came with those. I was able to remove all 14 of those back plate screws with using my little battery operated tool. I'm using a magnetic strip tape to help me pick those screws up. Once you remove the top, you will have 2 screws on each side of that heat sink. You're going to remove the LED plate. Just unplug. It's a 2-pin. Just unplug it real careful. It's real easy. You got 2 screws on each side of that back plate. That comes off real easy. Now you're going to use your 4mm socket, or they call it a nut driver. Those come real easy. I mean, I was just able to use a 4mm socket. They're not torqued down very hard, so I was able to turn them and get them loosened up. I removed a 4mm DVI port screws by hand. Once you remove that, your IO plate comes right off. Now you're going to remove the 4 tension screws that have a little, they're spring-loaded tension screws that hold your chip in place. Once you take those off, your pretty much little fan assembly comes off. You got a little fan cable, just unplug it real carefully. Once you unplug it, your PCB is free of all the other obstacles. And pretty much you want to make sure you get your chip cleaned with some 80% alcohol. Once you get your chip cleaned, you just go ahead and assemble everything back together with all the stuff that EVGA sent you. You're going to go back with the screws, those 4mm socket screws. You'll see that you don't have to tighten those very hard. I mean, you found them pretty loose, so you don't want to, you want to go them as far as they'll go. You're going to put your radiator hose shroud in there. It just has a little slot that goes in. You're going to install your radiator head. Fairly easy process. You want to line it up with the 4 screws. Put the hoses on the hose shroud. And I was able to do this with one hand holding the pump and the PCB, flipping it over and putting a first screw in. You want to make sure you go in a cross formation, one away from another. But I got the screws started first. I didn't get them all the way tightened till I got all 4 screws. So, like I said, this whole process is fairly easy. It should take you roughly an hour, give or take, maybe less. So I got my first screw started. Did not get it tightened yet. And I'm going to do that with all 4 screws. Once I got all the screws started, then I'm going to tighten them up in a crisscross formation. That way your thermal paste spreads out evenly. Your pump head will come with thermal paste pre-applied, and that's what I used. I decided not to use my own because it was, pretty much a similar thing. It's not going to make a huge difference. But once you get your 4 screws tightened, you're pretty much almost done with the project. You have a cover plate. You want to install all your cables and stuff. All right, so what we're gonna do next is we're gonna plug in all the cables. You're gonna have uh, the little fan that's on the graphics card itself plug, and then you're gonna have a pump plug. They're gonna plug into one another, and then the whole assembly plugs into the PCB itself. You want to hide the cables. There's a little hole for it to hide, and EVGA also gives you 2 pieces of tape, which is a pretty good piece of tape. It doesn't seem like it's gonna come loose any due to heat or excess age or nothing. So you just want to make sure those cables are not hitting those fans. That's your LED hookup on that side. You want to make sure you plug that in if you want to have the lights. And then your 2-pin radiator fan is connected right there as well. And once you have all that done, you're just going to put your cover plate back on. It has 3 screws on each side and 2 screws in the back. And you're pretty much done with this project. Like I said, this is a fairly easy project on scale 1 to 10. This is probably a 4, 10 being the hardest. But the best part about this is your thermals will go down to mid 40s under load, and your machine is literally quiet doing all that. So, well worth the money and time and investment. So enjoy, guys.